Just don't get canceled. Can't fire me. Over for myself. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, oh my God, we have a special treat today. You know, the OG fans are going to know who you are. This is my longtime friend from med school. If you go way back to the origins of this YouTube channel, you'll see Amit, my friend here, starring in a couple Day in the Life videos, some of the OGs. And
way back in the day, man.
Way back. So 2012 we met, started med school, UC San Diego, and still friends 11 years later.
Yeah.
Time has flown. This
Time
guy
flies,
got married last year.
Dude.
They grow up so fast. He's an attending physician now? What?
Thank you, bro. That's quite an introduction. I mean, like, yeah, the highlight of those highlights was definitely getting married last year, but yeah, 11 years friends with Kevin, and we go way back.
Wait, you're saying that getting married was more of a highlight than med school first year?
I would go out on a limb, yeah. My wife is not here right now, but she will watch this eventually, so there's one right answer to that.
We studied so hard that first year, dude.
Oh my God.
Way
dude,
too hard.
I mean, I'm glad you were there with me, man, because I don't think I would have survived without it. But yeah, we studied probably harder than we should have.
We kept each other sane, but we also drove each other to the point of like, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Right?
No, I think
we were gunners.
Right. Yeah,
not bringing people down, gunners,
yeah.
but like we just.
Yeah, we were doing the most. Let's say that. And I think
Friday nights.
Yeah, Friday nights were filled with two things: ping pong and studying. There's only two activities.
Could never beat this guy at ping pong, but I did. It was like probably like a 70-30 on beer pong, well, water pong rather.
Dude, I think you're selling yourself short. I think we were at least 60-40, if not close to 50-50 in our beer pong matches.
Maybe 60-40, but anyways, double overtime with this guy. Double overtime. Anyways,
Yeah, we digress.
We digress.
Great times with Kevin, and he's been a great friend for a long time. So
thanks, man. Likewise.
It's great to be back with you.
Likewise. First time in Vegas. How's it going so far? Welcome to Casa Jubal.
First time in Vegas at Kevin's house.
At my house, not first time in Vegas, period.
Yeah, it's certainly not my first foray in Vegas, but first time at Kevin's place in Vegas.
This is the most tame trip to Vegas because hanging out with Grandpa Jubal, things are like, let's have some scotch, let's chill by the fire.
Dude, but this is how you do it post 30, man. This is a crazy.
Welcome to your 30s.
I guess what day is it today?
Thursday.
Thursday. Yeah, Thursday night. Having a drink by the fire with your old friend. But yeah, it's good, man. I'm excited to see your beautiful new home and get a taste of a day in the life of the new Dr. Jabal in Vegas. Really not that new, but at least your new home.
Dude, the Vegas trips that we had back in med school were very different than this. Let's just leave it at that.
Yes. Say no more.
Dr. Pandey, the Pandy Man. Actually, what do you go by? Pandy? Pandey?
Good question, man. I mean, I think most people call me Pandy. At the hospital, they refer to me as Dr. Pandy, and it's kind of interesting. My dad was Dr. Pandy, actually. He was the original Dr. Pandy. He was a doctor internist at the VA in San Diego for a long time.
He was my preceptor in third year for primary care. Best preceptor, hands down. Actually, the girl I was dating at the time got assigned to be, he was going to be her preceptor.
I forgot that.
And then she was so clutch. She was like, Kevin, I know that you love Amit's dad.
Right.
And, I'm willing to, let you work with Dr. Pandy.
Right.
And that was super clutch of her. So,
yeah. I mean,
year
You
ever.
were already like an honorary part of the family prior to that. And then like
getting meals at your house and stuff with your family. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had the privilege of going to med school together, and my parents live in San Diego. And so I had my parents close by. So Kevin was a surrogate son for my for the Pandy parents.
My home away from home.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
But yeah, to answer the question, my dad was the original Dr. Pandy, and I always actually grew up identifying with that name because that's a lot of my friends in basketball and other things at school called me Pandy. Like we went by our last names a lot. So the real pronunciation of my name, if I'm really true to my roots, is Pandey. And I'm well aware of that, but I always kind of identified with the other pronunciation because it's just easier to pronounce.
I'm totally the same way. Yeah. So like I go by Jabal. Every video of Med School Insiders, Dr. Jabal, medschoolinsiders.com.
Right.
If someone asks me, my name is Kevin Jabal, right? When I was a kid growing up, actually, I guess I cared more about it because, like, you know, my parents were teaching me how to say things. I'm, you know,
Right.
4, 5, 6 years old. And I would correct people to be like, oh, no, it's not Jabal or Jubal or whatever. It's Jubal.
Right.
And for some reason, I guess in high school, people just started calling me by my last name.
Yeah.
Which
Same
is
here.
like a common thing.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
same here.
especially if you have a unique last name.
Right.
And it just kind of stuck. And that became who I was. And I haven't really felt the need to, I guess, correct people. In fact, I kind of like just own Jabal now. I mean, either is fine. Like when I'm with my family, like it's Jubal, like we say Jubal. But,
Right. Totally.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of interesting if you are a minority and you have a last name that is not the easiest to pronounce.
Right.
I mean, I felt like I needed to change it so that it was a little bit more palatable, a bit easier for people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I had super similar experience, and it's funny because this is actually the first time we're talking about this, but same exact experience with me. Like with my family, of course, my last name is pronounced Pandey, and that's how I identify, and that's certainly a normal part of my background and my culture and my identity. But somehow, like with the outside world, I always just pronounced it Pandy. And again, I think that was the example. That was my dad was Dr. Pandy, and then that was just like a nickname that I had too. So it's interesting. Like they're just both parts of my identity, and I identify with both.
So I can still call you Pandy Man.
Exactly, yeah.
But if you ever want to go by Pandey Man, I'm down to change it. Just a little bit hard for me to say.
I'm down for both. I am both. Both are part of me, and yeah, I think it's great. Like if you're in touch with your family, in touch with your culture and your background, you kind of know and understand both. But I think it's cool that we touched on that, because I'm sure it's a very common experience for a lot of, you know, immigrants or other people that have a name that's not necessarily super easy to pronounce for the Western tongue, so to speak. So
actually, I'm curious. Leave a comment below. Last name, how you properly pronounce it, try to like phonetically spell it out, versus how you change it for other people so that it becomes easier to pronounce. Yeah. I'm curious to hear.
Nice. Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure it's gonna be very common.
I'm sure it's a very common experience, and you know, even with a lot of people that speak their own language from a different country and things like that, but they kind of change the pronunciation because that's just an easier way to make it pronounceable. But
true that. So you finished residency a couple years ago. You've been living the promised land of being an attending physician, the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Can you tell the rest of us who haven't made it, you know, what it feels like?
Oh man, it's a long road. So if you're on the way and you're on the road, keep it up. You will get there. Yeah, it's definitely the promised land, because we were always, I don't know, fixated on getting to that point. And it's great, man. It's actually been 3.5 years now. And I finished internal medicine residency, and now I'm a hospitalist at a hospital called Sharp Memorial in San Diego. So I do what's called hospital medicine, inpatient internal medicine, where I admit patients from the ER to the hospital for any medical issue. So any adult patient with a medical issue. It's good, man. I mean, I think it's definitely better than residency, I'll tell you that. I would say progressively better. Like med school, not to say that I didn't enjoy the experience, but it's hard. As we alluded to in the beginning of this conversation, like it's tough. Like you're just kind of in the trenches of studying.
Well, when you say residency is better than med school, preclinical or clinical?
I think I probably mean that statement mostly related to preclinical, because for me, not that I didn't enjoy learning in medical school, but you didn't really get that like satisfaction of actually doing what you set out to do, which is take care of patients and be in the hospital and stuff. When you get to residency, you actually get that job satisfaction of like, okay, I'm actually a physician now. I'm actually taking care of patients. I'm having a responsibility. Years 3 and 4 of med school, you get that to a degree, but it's still piecemeal.
And you don't really feel like you're adding value as a 3rd or 4th year med student. You feel like you're getting in the way.
Exactly.
I have a slightly different experience, which is that I actually love the preclinical years, control of your time.
I see.
I mean, now that I'm an entrepreneur, I feel like a lot of these things, I'm seeing the commonality. I love the control of my time as an entrepreneur.
Right.
Love it. It's like one of the best things ever. But 1st and 2nd year, sure, you have some mandatory classes, but a lot of it is, hey, study whenever you want, do whatever you want. I love that freedom.
Right.
3rd and 4th year, for the rotations I didn't enjoy, I definitely didn't enjoy them. OB-GYN was I was like, why is this month going so slow?
Not easy, man. You're up early, long days, and
It wasn't even,
if it's not what you like.
I didn't mind the hours.
Yeah.
The thing is, like, it depends on, like, also the team you're with and
Right.
whoever and who you mesh with and whatever.
But I mean, if it's not what you're enjoying and you're putting in that many
But
hours.
dude, when I was
then-
on plastics or
Right.
ortho or neurosurge, like,
Yeah.
I was like, let's wake up at 3 a.m. every day and let's come back home at 9 p.m. and, like,
Right.
I'm game.
You were good.
Let's
yeah.
go.
Right.
So I think for me, it was very, like, polarized, good or bad, depending on not just the year, but also the subject matter or the rotation that I was doing.
Right. You're right. There are, like, first 2 years of med school versus years 3 and 4 are so different in terms of the way they're structured. At some point, we really, like, took hold of our autonomy in terms of our time in first and second year, and just realized, okay, this is how we need to spend our time to study for these classes. And you really do get to, like, craft your schedule the way you want
You
to.
can work out every day if you want to.
Which I did like. I definitely enjoyed that too. Step 1 time was tough. Back then, with the kind of older system, step 1 was the test for us.
Numeric
That really,
scoring before pass-fail.
where the score really mattered, and a lot of pressure was put on that exam. So we were pretty much very regimented, right? Our whole 6 weeks or 6 or
Dude,
7
I had
weeks.
every 30 minutes planned out.
Yeah,
6
it
weeks
was
in
nuts.
advance.
It was nuts. And again, this is like, these are things. This is why we'll be friends for life, or one of the many reasons. Because, like, I don't think I could have gotten through that time without you, because, you know, you kind of have to have, like, at least a couple people that you share that
In your
experience
corner,
with,
for
that
sure.
are in your corner.
Absolutely, man.
Med school can be
Likewise.
Yeah, and like
My girlfriend at the time, she'd be like, hey, let's study together. I'm like, no, it's not in the schedule.
can't deviate.
Friday, 6 p.m. That's when
Yeah.
you'll see me.
I know. Oh man, that was quite a time, but we got through that. I thought, like, getting to the clinical rotations 3rd and 4th year was exciting, but I agree with you. The challenge is you do a lot of rotations which might not be quite your cup of tea, so to speak, and you're working really hard, and it might not be your subject because there's so many different medical subspecialties, and everybody can't love everything, right? And then the second thing is you're always brand new on the job. You're always, quote unquote, bottom of the totem pole, so to speak. So you're trying to learn in a short period of time, and by the time you get proficient or maybe some level of feeling comfortable, you're on to the next rotation. So I thought that was tough. What I really liked about residency moving forward from medical school was you kind of feel like you're finally taking ownership. Like, this is my role, this is my job, these are my patients, and you're successively growing in one field to where you do reach a certain point where you feel proficient, and then you might even reach a certain point where you feel, like, efficient and, like, good at your job, And I think job satisfaction really improves over the
For
course
those
of medical.
wondering, I never made it that far.
Oh yeah, this is all theoretical for Kevin. I don't know. I mean, you made it.
Yo, at your bachelor party, your brother, we're at the airport, and I'm like, yo, is that a Omega Speedmaster? Like,
Yeah.
that was one of my whole, Grail watches, one of
Right.
the things that I wanted to buy. And I told him, I was like, you know what? I promised myself, because I loved watches in med school. I mean, we kind of had this little watch phase. You get the calculator watch and, like, kind of had fun with it.
Right.
And yeah, this guy's getting girls' numbers on his calculator watch. Imagine that. It was legend.
We already talked about how getting married last year was the best thing in my life. Don't tell anybody.
So I tell your brother, I'm like, I promised myself I would buy an Omega Speedmaster
Right.
when I graduated plastic surgery residency.
Okay.
He's like, oh yeah, how'd that go? And I was like, well, never finished residency, never got a Speedmaster.
Still working on it. It's all right. No, man, I think it's actually one of the cool things that whenever Kevin and I talk, or whenever we catch up and meet up, it's really fun to, like, see the different paths people have taken. And Kevin took a really unique path, which I give him major props on doing, because it takes a lot of
Thanks, man.
Yeah, it takes a lot of bravery and balls, for lack of a better way of saying it, to change and pivot. And I think it's awesome to see where you're at now. And
Thanks, man.
yeah, you didn't get that Speed Master yet, but you can still get it, and you've done a lot.
It's okay. I'm getting the Lotus Emira instead.
There you go.
So-
Yeah, you've done quite a bit, and it's cool. I think that's one of the unique things about medicine is actually people can end up in a lot of different places from where we started, and we always thought it was always going to be super linear, and maybe it is for some people, but not everyone. And it's good to have an open mind and just take what's best for you, not necessarily what someone else or what you thought was the original best path.
I think, thank you for saying that. I think what really stood out there to me is what you feel is best for you and not necessarily what you or anyone else originally thought. It's okay to change your mind, and it's, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but like the sunk cost fallacy and like,
Yep.
how hard I worked for, like,
Oh yes, I had a front row seat.
yeah, dude, like
I worked hard, but Kevin worked even harder than me. Yeah.
I grinded my face off, dude.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this. We were in med school. I mean, now you love your job, you love your
right.
specialty. It was like third or fourth year. You're like, Kevin, I'm almost jealous of how much you love plastic surgery.
Right.
And the ironic part is that I walked away.
Right.
And then you stuck with internal medicine. You grew to love internal medicine.
Right.
I mean, you already liked it to some degree, but you
right.
loved it even more after the fact. And like the amount of, like, I loved it, and I still do. I still think it's the coolest specialty in all of medicine.
Right.
In my totally biased opinion. But when your priorities or reality or goals or just life circumstance or perceptions change, it's okay to change your mind as long as you're not doing anything in a brash manner by any means. You want to be very intelligent and calculated and calm and etc. about it.
Yep.
But yeah, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to change priorities.
I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, just to like follow up on that point, yeah, it's something that I remember very clearly. Like speaking candidly about my experience, I was not really sure exactly what I wanted to do, even towards the latter parts of medical school, in terms of my specialty. And I was interested in internal med and potentially cardiology at the time, but Kevin and I would talk about this stuff, and I remember having this conversation where Kevin was like 1,000% sure about plastic surgery, which I thought was awesome. And yeah, the fact that, I mean, that still stands true. You loved and you probably still do love plastic surgery, but that didn't take away from the fact that circumstances changed and there was something different and maybe better that presented itself for you. I think part of it too is like, if sometimes people can have multiple loves, and like totally,
like the way that you see me obsess about cars is like the same way you saw me obsess about plastic surgery. Same way you see me obsess about entrepreneurship. It's like I just tend to like go 0 or 100. I can't do 50.
That
I can't do 75. I'm 0 or 100.
Right. That is true. Yeah, and I think like especially in medicine, there might feel like there's a lower tolerance for like exploration, I would say, in terms of like self-exploration, like professionally or otherwise. But like, we're not all like robots that just love studying medicine and doing our jobs. Like, Kevin knows my hugest passion outside of medicine is basketball, right? So like everybody's got some other stuff. And in the same regard, like you may have multiple professional interests, and I think it's totally acceptable and honestly maybe even encouraged that like as you go along the path, like constantly evaluate what is out there and whether what you're doing is maybe the best thing for you at that moment. And if there's different opportunities that arise, it's totally healthy to consider them and potentially even pivot. I think like having tolerance, it's like self-tolerance for considering other opportunities is great, because it is hard. It's really tough to make that leap and say, you know what, I'm going to try something new and something different.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's great. And like, I think you're a great example of being brave and doing something else and having it work out really well.
Thanks, man. Speaking of other professional interests and other passions and other hobbies and pursuits, you've been working on a project.
Yes, that is right. So I'm excited to talk about it. So I'm working on a book, and it is in the making for a few years now. I'm coming close to completion. It's not quite done yet, but I'm definitely excited to talk about it and pretty soon bringing it out to the world and anyone who's interested. But basically, its working title right now is The Premed Paradox: What You Really Need to Know About the Life of a Physician. That's in the works, so we'll see. It might change a little bit, but it's a project that kind of came to be shortly after I became an attending, actually. I started thinking about and reflecting on how I ended up where I was. And part of it was like, I enjoy writing, and I was sort of wanted to just journal a little bit about my experience. But it started to form into this desire to like put my experiences in a cohesive and helpful format that I might be able to pass along to future generations of people either that are considering a career in medicine or just interested in reading about what life in medicine or as a physician is like. So it's, I'm really excited about it. It's in the works right now, and hopefully it's going to be interesting to read. And I think people...
It's going to be amazing. Yeah. Okay, here's the thing. Dr. Pandey is extremely humble, and he used to do some writing for the Medical Insider's blog in the early days. And all the best pieces of writing were obviously not written by me. Like, you've always been an extremely strong writer. You're like...
Thanks, man.
The younger Attila Conde.
Dude, that is way too high praise.
So I'm, I read a chapter or two, and I was really blown away. I was trying to edit and like help provide some value, and I was like, dude, I got nothing. This is fantastic. This is amazing. So
thanks, man. I appreciate it.
And I really mean that. I'm just trying to gas you up. Like it's it's really exciting stuff. I do think that Amit is one of the best writers that I know. Really fantastic stuff.
I appreciate that. I know you're an honest guy, and you can be brutally honest. So
I can definitely be brutally honest.
That is a big stamp of approval, because I know you mean it if you say it. So thanks, man. I appreciate that.
For sure. Premed Paradox.
Yeah.
What does that title mean?
Yeah. So basically, again, it sort of summarizes one of the basic tenets of the book, or kind of the central ideas that brought me to writing this book, which was this paradox that I had noticed when I reflected on my experience and also the experience of some of my peers. And so what it is so this part is no secret, right? So medicine is obviously, or becoming a physician is obviously one of the longest and most difficult professional paths, right? It's 4 years of undergrad, 4 years of medical school, at least 3 years of residency, all the way up to maybe 8 years, depending on a residency or fellowship that you do. So it's a huge commitment, right? Tremendous commitment. And meanwhile, it's also extremely popular, right? So pre-med is one of the most popular majors, and medical school continues to be super competitive because it's a really popular career choice for a number of reasons, many of which I talk about in the book. But when I thought about it, the paradox came out to me that I think a lot of us, or many of us, including myself, made that commitment, or decided to commit to going down that path with relatively little information, or maybe I would say little understanding about what that commitment actually entailed. What was my life actually going to look like in medical school, residency, and as a physician? I didn't really know a whole lot about it. And I just said, put my head down and I'm going to do this. And I was sort of goal oriented in becoming a physician, but I didn't necessarily take a lot of time to step back and think about what would my life actually be like. And, I think it's not to anybody's fault, because it's actually really hard to come by that information, right? It's not that easy to understand the complexities of what it is like to be a physician, or what are the nuts and bolts of medical school and residency. So I wanted to, that's why I think it's a paradox. I kind of think the level of commitment on relatively little information, it's a huge leap of faith that a lot of us take. And so my goal in writing this book was to bring a comprehensive resource of knowledge about the actual experience and life of a physician to help people understand what they're signing up for if they do make that commitment.
I love it. I think it's kind of interesting to me how a lot of people, when we're younger, we tend to focus a lot on our own establishing ourselves, success, right? So early, mid-20s, late adolescence even, I think a lot of people are so focused on grinding hard in med school and doing well in your exams, et cetera, et cetera. And then once you start achieving some level of success and some momentum, and you start feeling more confident and assured with yourself,
right?
You start looking outward and you start saying, okay, how can I help others not just focus on trying to establish myself? And I'm seeing a bit of a parallel here where I went through, videos and a different route with the business and all that stuff. And it's so one of the best things is about this business and this entrepreneurship is actually just the messages that you receive, and
totally.
just the positivity, and you're people are so ecstatic and they're so grateful because they had this lifelong dream and then they didn't get into med school 3 or 4 times or into residency as an IMG or an FMG, and then you work with them and then they're like, I didn't think this was even possible,
right? And
they're just gushing. It's amazing. It's such a good feeling.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's awesome. Very rewarding, I'm sure.
Well, you're going to find out because you're essentially doing the same thing through a different medium. So you're
Right.
not doing YouTube videos, you're not doing a business like MSI
Right.
or MEM, but you're serving the same population through a different avenue,
Right.
which is through this book, through something that you're very gifted at, which is writing. And I think it's a kind of an interesting parallel that a lot of people maybe in their later 20s, early
Right.
30s, when they start getting more established, they start saying, hey, how can I actually add value to others
Right.
rather than just trying to establish myself?
Totally. You start thinking about how can you give back and
Community, legacy, give
absolutely,
back, pay
yeah.
it forward.
I love that phrase, pay it forward. And it's a great book and eventually a movie, by the way, if you're interested. But yeah, like how can you give back and how can you help others? Because you realize you reflect, number one, it's not all about your singular pursuit of success on your own. You want to be able to help others achieve the same. And you realize there were so many people instrumental to your success as well that you never could have gotten to where you are without it. And so it just increases your desire and your feeling and of wanting to give back to others. So yeah, I totally agree with that parallel. And I think like for this book, it's interesting because there's a lot of parallels with what you do, of course, and it's very relevant to MSI and a lot of your viewership and your audience. And I think my desire was to really what's the core goal of the book is to empower people with knowledge and just to give people the tools and the knowledge of the most comprehensive and honest account of, from my perspective, of course, but of what it's like to be a physician and to go through each step from med school, undergrad, med school, residency, and beyond, and actually life as a physician and an attending. And I really feel like it's empowering to have that knowledge, and it'll only help you along your path towards medicine or towards whatever it is that you choose. And I kind of reflect, and I think these are the things that I wish I knew back then. And I feel like it's only going to help folks and make you more prepared if you have better knowledge of what's to come.
Beautiful. I love it. It's a whole book, so it's hard to distill everything that's in that book. So the key takeaways and the main insights for the book.
Okay. So great question. A few things come to mind. The first thing is that, kind of touched on this before, but the goal of the book was to give the most comprehensive and the most honest account of what the actual experience of life as a physician is like, rather than necessarily like the nuts and bolts of how to get into medical school or how to get to that endpoint, but really what are you going to feel, what are you going to experience along the way. I think there's a ton of resources out there that focus on how to get in, and let me just say that Med School Insiders does it better than anybody else, and that's super important work.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, obviously I'm biased. I've known Kevin for years, and I was kind of a little bit along his side at the beginning of MSI's origins, but no doubt, outstanding service that they provide, and they do that better than anyone. I think that's super important for sure. But I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle, which is, what is that experience going to be like, and trying to help people understand, the emotions, the ups and downs, the challenges, the triumphs, all that stuff. And just to help people be more informed and maybe basically more ready to tackle whatever comes down the road. So that first part is that I think it's really that focus on the experience and helping people understand that.
And we try to do that as much as possible with MSI, but obviously given the nature of short videos that are tendable, we consider them short. Now we have 60-second, 15-second videos, but these shorter videos that are 10, 15 minutes in length, they can't capture everything. So we'll do a day in the life, we'll do whatever.
Yeah.
But we can't go to the same depth as a book that's going to take you hours to read.
Right.
And that gives you such a deeper level, a nuanced kind of, I'm going to get take a shot every time I say nuanced. That's like my favorite word, apparently, according to my viewers.
New drinking game coming from our conversation here.
But the book, just the format alone offers a different kind of level.
Yeah, it gives you the opportunity to really delve deeply into it. And I totally agree. Like, one thing that came to mind is that day in the life videos is a great way to help depict that life, right? You're getting a snapshot of the experience of different people in different fields and different specialties or at different points in training, which is super helpful. And I think I think I feel passionate about like furthering that cause, right? Which is helping people understand what the life is like and whether that life might be right for them. And I agree, like the book just gives the opportunity to delve maybe deeper and just kind of distill everything into one package, right? This is my effort to help kind of fully depict that life and that experience as a doctor. And so that kind of like brings me to the next point, which is it allows us the opportunity to delve into some issues and some topics that are maybe a little harder to talk about, that are touched on for sure by MSI and other entities, but things that are like relevant to some of the emotional and psychological challenges of being a physician, things like burnout, which is a kind of negative psychological outcome of any career or any pursuit, but particularly relevant to medicine these days. Some of the financial challenges of medicine. So we talk about all the ups, there's a lot of financial positives, there's a lot of emotional positives, but we also talk about the other side, the flip side of the coin. And again, my goal was to just be fully honest and really like journalistic in my approach, in the sense that I want to give the full account of some of the ups and downs of what it is to be a doctor, and not sugarcoat it, let's put it that way. So I think that's unique. I think those components of the book, we really delve into those things, and I just want to be honest, accurate, and provide as much utility as I can to the reader.
What are some of the things that surprised you the most in terms of what you were expecting attending life to be, maybe when you were a pre-med, if you were even considering it, right? Because I think that a lot of us just focus on the next step. We don't even think about, oh my God, what's it going to be like when I'm 35 years old?
Right.
What surprised you about attending life, both the good and the bad?
Yeah. So first of all, you make a great point that it's really hard to envision your future actually when you're starting out this process, when you're 17 or 18, just starting undergrad. And we are all kind of focused on that endpoint, which is appropriate, right? It takes a lot of work to get to that endpoint. But it's hard to sometimes take a step back and envision, what is my life actually going to be like? So great point there. Getting to attending life, I think, when you first start out, there's always that kind of adjustment phase when you're getting used to like that complete independence. But I would say it was actually a big positive, just like we talked about before, that step from medical school to residency into getting more autonomy, more ownership, more like job satisfaction from being actually doing what you had set out to do. I actually found that getting to attending life and getting through that initial phase of a little bit of hesitation about, I don't have that backup of my supervising attending. Once I passed that phase, it actually went quicker than I expected. And I actually really liked it. I really liked the independence, the autonomy, and the ability to like practice the way I want to practice and craft my interactions with my patients the way I want to. Like, for example, you can have your own style in the way that you interact with your patients, and you can be conversational. You can take 5 minutes out of your day to have a normal conversation with your patient if you want. You don't necessarily have as much of the time pressure as you did as a resident, in the sense that if I want to stay a little longer that day because I wanted to spend time with my patient, or I wanted to spend 30 extra minutes talking about a patient's goals or desires in their life, I can do that. And I just stay longer and I do my work a little bit later that day. So I love the autonomy and the flexibility.
Just to add to the different patient interaction styles, I remember both in med school and residency, there were always a few people I was working with where I really admired their bedside manner. And there was one resident in my plastics residency who I'm still in touch with today, an awesome guy. And there were some people also during my rotations, whether they were away or at home. And it's kind of cool to be able to experiment and try on different styles to see what feels the best, you know, because I think when I first started out, I mean, you were there during my, we were all doing like Oskies and boob Oskies and whatever.
Yes.
Like, I was so serious and so like, you got to remember my
Yeah.
protocol and blah,
Right.
blah, blah. And like
Right.
in real life, I can be a pretty silly,
Yeah.
funny, happy, whatever, kind of like go with the flow,
Right.
kind of let's have some fun with it. And when it's business, it's like, it is business.
Right.
And I was bringing up more just like, it's the business time right now. And seeing those other people allowed me to kind of bring a little bit more personality and fun and flavor and like, hey, you know
Yeah.
what? Let's just enjoy this. Like, let's enjoy this moment right
Totally.
now. And you get it. By seeing those, you can try on different styles. And you're like, okay, that style doesn't really fit me, but let me try this one instead.
Right.
It's like, that's the time to do it in your training.
I agree. Yeah. And I think it's fun. I mean, a huge part of medicine, really any like patient care profession, but particularly being a doctor, is you're interfacing with people nonstop, right? And so you get the opportunity to interact with them in a lot of different ways, and you can develop your own style and how you want to do that. And I agree with you. I definitely remember people that impressed me, the way they put people at ease, or the way they had personality in their interactions. And you know, no doubt we have a tremendous amount of time pressure, and being a doctor is very busy. There's no doubt about it. It's a tough job. But if you can take the time in the day to, like, you know, spend a little extra time with people, or do what makes you feel good as the physician, like make a joke, make light of some situation, or spend extra time listening to them, or
Just don't get canceled.
yeah, appropriate joke, of course. Yeah, just don't get canceled for sure. But point being, you know, inject some personality in the situation. It definitely makes the job more enjoyable. I think it makes your patients feel more cared for. So I don't know.
You're an actual human being that's connecting with them and not just a robot.
Totally. And I think that although I started to develop that in residency, I think having more professional comfort in your skill level and your like ability to care for people well allows you to sort of be more creative in your like interpersonal part, right? So you feel like you've got your clinical care under control, and then you can be a little bit more at ease and kind of interact with patients more comfortably. So that's been cool. I think your original question was, what were some of the challenges and some of the positive aspects? So I think that was one of the positive aspects. Challenges of being an attending, I think it's kind of interesting because it's a little bit contrary to what I just said, but at the same time, I think I've entered this portion of my career where I'm really trying to figure out how is it that I want to spend my time both professionally and outside of my professional job, and how do I craft my life in a way that I'm getting personal and professional satisfaction, but also having the time to spend with family and do other things, other interests like writing my book, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that like next stage of your career, one of the next stages that Kevin talked about was figuring out how to give back to others, because I think that gives a lot of people more satisfaction. Another next stage of that career is, how do I want to spend my time? Do I want to spend more time doing research projects? Do I want to pursue administrative roles? Do I want to be a leader in my specialty or in my organization? Or do I want to pursue stuff outside of medicine? Do I want to write a book? Do I want to learn to play golf, which I'm trying to do right now, and I'm terrible, by the way.
Yeah, we should go to the range.
Yeah, we should. So yeah, I think like just navigating, you've kind of finally made it to that endpoint, that like quote unquote promised land that we mentioned. But that in and of itself will not bring you happiness, I've realized. And I think that
Constant learning, constant evolving.
exactly, we're always evolving and we're always learning, you know, and it's an active process, I think, to be happy. Like, you make the choices to spend your time the way you want to spend, and to be with the people that you want to be with, and to do positive things that will bring you fulfillment and bring you happiness. So I think that's like where I'm navigating my career now. Certainly very happy with my job, with the road that I've taken in medicine. Very thankful to be where I'm at, and very grateful to have ended up where I am today. And now I'm in the phase of like figuring out the next steps and where my full career is going to take me.
And you're also doing admin stuff in your practice too, right?
Yes. So earlier than I expected, but yeah, I kind of got the opportunity to take on a leadership role pretty early in my
It's not just a leadership. Like you're. I mean, let's not be super modest here. Let's tell the people what it is.
Kevin is, making me demonstrate my hesitance to talk about myself, but so I'm now the chief of my division, my division of hospital medicine at my hospital. So
top dog.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean that's like kind of a next step of my career that certainly came along sooner than I expected, but I had the opportunity and I decided to kind of jump on the opportunity because I knew that in addition to the clinical growth that I was already experiencing and that I'll continue to experience, because medicine is, you never know it all, right? So there's always tons to learn, but I knew that I would grow a lot by being in a leadership role and understanding different components of medicine, the business of medicine, how to manage people, and how to help kind of, resolve disputes, things like that. So yeah, that's another portion of my growth that's going on right now. But yes, of course, you made me bashfully admit that.
It's really impressive, man. It's very impressive that you're only a few years out from residency and you're already chief of your division, which is like that. You must be one of the youngest, if not the youngest chief.
I don't know the exact stats, but yeah, it's certainly not common.
That's very impressive.
I think the way I had a lot of opportunities that came early, and I had really good leadership and mentorship that helped me get to where I am right now. And I'm very thankful for that. But yeah, I think for the most part along my road professionally, I've tried to be like a yes man. Like, when the opportunity arises, if it's not something that I don't think is going to provide me some sort of growth, if it's not, then it's probably not right for me. But if I think it's an opportunity to grow, to learn, to do something new, I try to take that opportunity. And I'm glad I've done that. And but there's always a balance. It's the same thing I talked about before. It's always okay to take a step back and either say no sometimes or consider, do I want to do something else? So just so happened that I kind of came upon this opportunity. But yeah, it's been, trust me, it's a whole different skill set than being a doctor, but
managing people.
Yeah, but I'm learning a lot. Like just in a couple of years in leadership and like 6 months as chief, I've learned a ton and I've grown a ton already.
I think managing people is the hardest part of entrepreneurship, actually.
Dude, yeah. Tell me about your
your
experiences in that regard.
Well, the actual the analytical, the intellectual, the hard numbers part of entrepreneurship is actually pretty straightforward if you're just willing to sit down, work hard, etc.
Right.
But people are unpredictable. People it's if it's just one person, that's not too challenging. But when you're managing a team of people, you have dozens of physicians under you.
Right.
Then it's like different personalities and politics and motivation and inspiration and discipline and it's all these things all at the same time, and there is no perfect single answer. Now you need to kind of like, okay, how do I approach this? Let me try this. Okay, no, it's not quite working well. Let me try this. Oh, that's working.
Right.
So it's like this constant learning process. It's learning to the power of it's just so much more amplified.
Definitely, and it's a very different skill set in that, like, for the most part, at least from the medical component or the clinical component of medicine, it's a lot of it is you can study and you can learn and you can be a skilled surgeon by years and hours of practice. You can be a really solid hospitalist or internist by really studying and knowing your material. But like the personal component, like what we talked about before with patients, that's very intangible. It's an art for sure. And I think the same is true of leadership as well. Like, there's no right answer. You're totally right. Like most situations, there's multiple different ways to approach it. You have to navigate and make your best decision in that moment. But that's why I totally agree. It's like a complete ongoing learning process. But I am really thankful that I've had the opportunity, because I'm sure you feel the same. Like the amount of growth that you go through doing that and being put in new situations is like very significant.
100%.
Yeah.
Now, I had asked you about the things that surprised you, both good and bad. And one thing that came up while you were talking, I forget exactly what you said that prompted this, but the idea that there are certain things that draw us to medicine, right? And I do hope that the viewers, they aren't afraid to explore more deeply what those elements are that captivate them the most. So for me, I loved learning about the human body and the intricacies about this versus that and how this system interplays with this, and just like trying to optimize all these little things.
Right.
And I feel so fortunate that I'm able to explore that on my YouTube channel.
Right.
Like I'm wearing a CGM and I'm tracking my sleep, and I'm now cycling in zone 2 and zone 5 for 6 hours a week, and 80% is in zone 2, and I'm tracking my VO2 max, and like experimenting on myself and with my body and trying to learn through this way.
Right.
It's not like you stop learning. Even if you leave clinical medicine, you can still use your foundational training, what you've learned, to further explore the human body. And it's such a fun thing. I can't believe that I get to do this as part of my job.
Yeah.
Like that's
actually
so
awesome.
much fun.
Yeah. Because I mean, at the end of the day, we both like to nerd out about medicine, right? Like it's fun, right? And I think no matter how much we talk about, some of the, the jokes we make about how much we used to study and how it was tough, I actually really did enjoy like getting to the point of starting, particularly like the first 2 years of medical school, when you're really just like in the trenches of learning all that stuff about physiology, anatomy, pathology, like actually understanding how things work. It's awesome. And it's like kind of mind-blowing.
Especially when you kind of look back like third or fourth year, you're like, I learned how much?
Oh my gosh, it's crazy how much you learn. And then it slowly layers upon it, on top of each other, and you sort of add to your understanding. It really is cool. And I love medicine. Yeah. And so I think that it's actually really cool that you continue to like utilize that in your profession and what you do, as well as your personal life. Like, totally agree.
The other thing too is, so that's like one aspect that I love. Yeah. Another aspect is, obviously, as humans, even if you're the most selfish person in the world, it is in your selfish best interest to help other people, because you actually you derive intrinsic satisfaction and fulfillment from that.
Right.
So when I'm able to empower others, and like I get the messages, and I get like that, like you can help others beyond just being a physician in a classical clinical doctor-patient kind of relationship. And that too has been very fun to explore and dive deeper in. And just it's been interesting to see the various themes that drew me to medicine, the things that I loved about it. Even like, okay, one of the big things that I loved and obsessed over in plastic surgery, as you know, was technique. And like, let me just practice suturing for fun on a Friday night or whenever I have free time.
That's what makes a good surgeon, though.
Or not tying. Dude, I read a book, like during my third year surgery rotation, I read a book on suturing. I should have been reading about, surgery, like preparing for my shelf. I still did well. I honored whatever. Yeah. But like, I also made time to read a book about suturing because I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Minimizing the actual scarring and, wound healing and all these things. And part of me, like, I do miss working with my hands in that way. So there's other ways that I'm now getting in touch with, like I'm getting back into drawing. I did a drawing class recently. I used to do so much drawing when I was a kid.
That's awesome. I actually remember you're a really good artist. But
thanks, man.
I didn't know you were doing that again. That's great.
I did like a class here at UNLV. That was a lot of fun.
Nice.
Learning different techniques and just doing things with my hands. Like, even just around the house, I'm doing more handiwork. I'm working on my car a lot more. I'm like doing all these various things, doing modifications and just more and more maintenance as well. And I think there's another level of satisfaction from perfecting a craft.
Right.
And so surgery is very easy to understand.
Yeah,
all
that's
the various
a perfect
techniques
example of that. Yeah.
But even like on the racetrack, I'm trying to get better as a driver. And I became an instructor with Porsche Club of America, with Audi Club, with Speed Adventure, like with various track day organizations, where I am helping people go on the racetrack, do it safely, go fast, have fun. And
you're helping others, though. You're kind of giving back.
True. Yeah. And it helps you intellectualize it, because now you're trying to think about it, not just, oh, I do this, but like, how can I teach someone to do this well?
Right.
And it's another craft where you can keep working at it and perfecting it and try to like,
Yeah.
you're chipping away a little bit. Like you're not going from 0 to 20 to 40 to 60 to 80. You're going from, okay, I'm at 70, now 72, now 74, now 74.5, like all these small incremental changes. And there is something really satisfying to working hard and seeing yourself slowly progress.
Totally agree. And I think like one kind of subject you touched on in that is, which we've been talking about this whole time, which maybe is a theme of our discussion and maybe a theme of the book, as well as like empowering others and giving back and paying it forward, right? So I think one really central thing to medicine and maybe to other fields as well, like for example, what Kevin's talking about on the track is like teaching others, right? Once you've learned something, once you've maybe gained a skill, even if you can call it that, it's really fun, it's really exciting, sometimes challenging, but very rewarding to teach others, right? So in medicine, we have this like kind of slightly facetious phrase of see one, do one, teach one, which is a little bit of an oversimplification, but the idea being that if you're a med student, if you're a resident, if you're a physician, like teaching others is an inherent component of a medical career. And I think that is also something that I channeled into this book, and that, like I said, the whole goal is to empower others and to help educate and to help provide information that I think will only strengthen other people's knowledge base about their potential future career. And I think that desire to give back and to teach is like a central theme of being a doctor and a central theme of the book. And I guess one other point I would like to make there is that I really wanted to write this in a way that people, even non-medical people who might be just interested in learning about what a physician's life is like, they might find it interesting. So at the end of the day, it's supposed to be fun to read. It's supposed to be interesting. There's a lot of my anecdotes and experiences in there. Of course, it's most tailored to a pre-med or somebody who's interested in medicine as a career. But yeah, hopefully it's interesting to anyone. And again, that desire to teach is still something that's like really strong within me. And I think that, I think it's a big part of being a doctor in general.
Well said,
because Kevin's
man.
always a doctor, no matter what. he's got that physician in him. And in my view, I mean, you've been through it all with me, and just because you're not practicing anymore, but you're still, you've been through that whole experience with me, so you know what I'm talking about, and you know where I'm coming from.
I'm super excited for this book. I think it's gonna be, a banger. I think we'll, if you guys want to, of course, order it, pre-order it, read it, enjoy it. We'll also be doing, in addition to that, a book summary on the Med School Insider's YouTube channel, because I think it does very much serve the purpose of what we're trying to do at MSI with regards to educating pre-meds about the field of medicine. Like I don't just tell people to pursue medicine. I tell the pre-meds that, hey, out of 100 pre-meds, only 75 of you will be happy as physicians. The other 25, you may be happier choosing something else.
Right.
And I do that because, again, we've always focused on just keeping it real, on the truth, on cutting through the nonsense.
Yep.
And with the truth as the guiding North Star, the guiding principle, rather than business profit, because, obviously my business, we help people get into medical school. So I should say, hey, everyone go into medical school, and everyone, blah, blah, like we have, several videos like titled, do not go to medical school. This is your, like, the things that they don't tell you about medical school.
Because you're bringing the honest, direct approach. Yeah.
Like we've seen in our class and in our resident, like we've seen suffering. We've seen people who are unhappy, and it's like it is an overrated profession. That doesn't mean it's not a good profession. Overrated in the sense that most people expect it to be up here,
right?
And even though it's still high up, it's maybe over here, not over here,
right?
So it's important that people enter this massive commitment with both eyes open, and because once you're in it, it's a lot harder to be like, okay, hey, I changed my mind. It's like, well, haha, 250K.
Yeah, it's tough to pivot because there's so much investment of time, money, and effort that goes into it.
And sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I think you're right, because no matter what, at the end of the day, it's not for everybody. It can't be, right? Not every profession, has its pros and its cons, and I think that it's totally appropriate to do a lot of self-evaluation before you make that commitment. And, you know, that's something that Kevin, I think, has been aware of and passionate about for a long time. And I remember what you said just now is so true, that like, I remember in the early days when you were kind of just getting MSI off the ground, that your like central tenet or like North Star, like you said, was like cutting straight through the BS and having it be like the real, honest, truthful account.
Dude, we're ruthless, man. I've just leaned further and further into it. We're talking about a lot of things that are hot topics that are very sensitive, but it's like these need to be talked about, and it's like it's a responsibility,
which
man,
I totally respect.
Thank you, dude, because it's like, I remember I was in residency, so this is like the first year of MSI being started. We started in 2016. And I was like, man, like there's some important topics, but no one's talking about these.
Right.
And then it was kind of like a oh shit moment where I was like, oh, I guess I'm that person.
Right.
Because I have 200K on YouTube.
You have the opportunity to have
and if I'm not talking about it and I'm saying that other people should be talking about it,
right,
I'm just a hypocrite.
Right.
So it was almost like a moral obligation. And I was like, okay, I guess I got to talk about this.
Right.
And I'm fortunate that can't fire me over for myself.
Yeah.
But so I can talk about the things that have zero impact on my business, things like mid-level creep, things like MD versus DO, the reality, even though everyone's trying to be, you know, PC and say, hey, they're like, are they equal physicians? Yes, but there are pros and cons you need to choose.
Yeah.
You need
it's
to
important to be aware.
You need to be aware of the pros and cons when you're entering medical school.
It's something that we talk about.
All that stuff
too. Yeah.
So it's like, you know, I'm all about keeping it real, and it's because I was one of those pre-meds that didn't have anyone else in healthcare in my family that was figuring it out, that was super lost, that made some mistakes, that, you know, if I had a resource that, or just someone I could count on to tell me the truth, I'd be like, man, that reduces so much uncertainty and stress from my life.
Absolutely.
You know?
Totally. I think that you honestly bring up such a great point, and I think it's like maybe one of the biggest takeaways of this whole conversation is that like so many of us don't necessarily have the luxury or the opportunity to have like real, like a keep it real mentor, like somebody who's done it before, who may have been through medical school, been through residency, been through being an attending, that can really give you like an honest account. And I think MSI provides that value, like, you know, totally. And I think that that's a comparable thing to what I'm trying to achieve with this book. And I think that, yeah, if there's any one way to vision or to envision what this book provides, it's like, imagine it's like a mentor that might be hard to find, that can talk you through what is it really like, and like what is the keep it real take on what is physician life going to be like, and answer some of those hard questions, talk about some of those difficult topics, and just help you understand. Because I agree with you, like it's so hard to come about that information, and
especially when you know, a lot of people I think are very eager to talk about the positives,
right? And
you know, the positivity, it's fun to be positive. It's nice to be positive, you know?
Right.
And you get the nice photos. You're wearing your white coat. You're on Instagram. You're looking all sexy. And life is great and amazing and
there's
perfect.
There's a lot of positive, but you know, there's two sides to every coin, and I think that's the thing. Like, you know, life is a roller coaster, man, and so is medicine. And I think that's what I tried to achieve with this book. I talk about a lot of the pros, a lot of the cons, the ups and the downs, because there's a lot of ups. Don't get me wrong. Medicine is an awesome career. Being a physician's an awesome job. But hey, man, it's not all roses. And I think it's important to be honest at the end of the day. And finding that honest mentorship and that honest take is not easy. So think of this book as an opportunity to get that from someone who's been through it relatively recently. Like, as you know, Kevin and I went through this we're getting a little old. We're getting a little up there, but it wasn't that long ago.
early 30s, are we though?
But not too long ago, we were in the shoes of
Dude, I feel better at
pre-meds.
32 than I did at like 25.
Actually, yeah, dude, that's awesome. First of all, that's great, and I give you props for feeling that way. But I agree, like, dude,
it's like now we have the time to exercise.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with it.
12 hours a week.
You get a lot of more opportunity to do what you want to do with your time, I think.
Optimize your glucose levels.
CGM, tracking your sleep.
Yeah. Get your blackout curtains that are like super effective.
Yeah, also like we go to bed on time. We, rarely have a little bit of whiskey, but when we do, it's in moderation,
Lagavulin 16.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Cheers, man.
Bro, it has been such a pleasure to finally host you in Vegas, to see you.
Dude, thank you.
It's been so good, man. So good.
Always great to see you, man. It's a pleasure, and yeah, it's always a great time catching up.
If people want to learn more about the book, where can they find out more?
Definitely. So anyone who's interested, please check out premedparadox.com.
Link in the description.
Yeah, we'll have more information coming on the release. The book is coming later in 2023. It's in its final stages. But yeah, check out premedparadox.com, and definitely, I think you won't be disappointed. It'll bring a lot of value, and I'm excited. I'm just excited to release it and to bring it out to you guys.
Thanks for watching, everyone. And if you'll excuse us, we got some Lagavulin 16 to enjoy.
Cheers.
Cheers, Amit.